Hi everybody, Joe the Harp here. Welcome to Lesson 0 on the harmonica. The reason I'm calling it Lesson 0 is because this is the one to take before you've even bought your first harmonica. There's lots of people out there who really like the idea of playing the harmonica and they just don't know where to start on it. So this is to guide you. The aim is to try and guide you in your first purchase of a harmonica before you get started. Okay, now the first thing to say is the word harmonica is a very, very broad term indeed, describing a whole class of instruments, yeah? So saying harmonica is a bit like saying plucked stringed fretted instrument, yeah, okay, but if you think about it, you wouldn't expect somebody who can play one of these, which is a plucked fretted stringed instrument, to be able to play one of these, oops, okay, even though, once again, it's a plucked stringed fretted instrument, but there's a different number of strings and quite a lot of other weird stuff going on with that particular instrument. Answers on a postcard as to what that one's called, by the way. Okay, and it's a similar situation with a harmonica, yeah, because it's just a general term that we use for any instrument which consists of a bunch of holes in it, and the holes contain metal reeds that vibrate as you blow air over them. Within the whole massive world of harmonicas, there are two families which are the most important ones to talk about. The two main ones are the chromatic harmonica and the diatonic harmonica. Okay, that's the one that I tend to play the most. So just to start with the chromatic harmonica, okay, what does it look like? It's usually a slightly more substantial instrument, as you can see, and it's got a button at the side. Now the word chromatic, in case you don't know, when applied to music, it means that you can play a chromatic scale on it, okay, which if you can think about a piano keyboard, it means all of the notes, the white notes and the black notes, whereas diatonic implies you can only play the white notes. The chromatic harmonica, people sometimes think of that as being a slightly more, quote, serious instrument. So a decision to buy a chromatic is about the same as, say, deciding to buy a clarinet. It feels like quite a substantial investment. In fact, I recently went on a quite comprehensive website for buying harmonicas, and I just looked at every single chromatic they had available. The very cheapest they had was £53, and the most expensive was over 4,000. What's the average in that? Well, if you put them in a line and say which is the one in the middle of those values, what we call the median, it was £250. So again, it feels a bit like buying a clarinet or a trumpet or something like that. Who plays the chromatic? Some brilliant players, okay, most notably Stevie Wonder, yeah, all those delightful solos he plays, it's always on a chromatic harmonica. Also, you may have heard the theme tune of the film Midnight Cowboy that was played by Toots Thielemans. That's the one that goes like this. Etc. Now the other type then is called the diatonic harmonica, very often referred to as the blues harmonica or blues harp. We use the word harp interchangeably with harmonica. It was originally called the French harp. That's where that word comes from, by the way. I don't call it a blues harmonica, mainly because I don't think you should put instruments into stylistic boxes, and you can play all sorts on this as well. You can play folk music, you can play classical music, you can play jazz music as well, okay, but it probably is the most famous for playing blues and maybe a bit of rock on as well. In terms of price, same exercise. Going on a website selling all sorts of harmonicas, the very cheapest diatonic was about £5, and the most expensive was just over £200, and the point in the middle was £38. That was the median. And generally speaking, I would say even if it's your first ever one, don't buy one for a £5. Look to pay £30-ish minimum, okay, because you might as well get a good one. I mean, the good news is that you get incredibly good value for money on this instrument. Yeah, £30 isn't an awful lot to spend for something that you can get pretty much professional standard sounds out of. I compared a chromatic harmonica to buying a clarinet. I could compare buying a diatonic to buying a whistle. So people who play this instrument, they tend to have quite a few of them. Again, they tend to have them in several keys, and indeed with a harmonica, if I just show you my case that I use when I go on gigs, I mean I've got there we go, the missing one is the one that I just played, but yeah, there's 12 of them in all 12 keys. So the diatonic harmonica is the one of the most famous harmonica played by the blues greats, yeah, so the likes of Sonny Boy Williams in the first and the second, also some famous rockers like Mick Jagger and people like that who also played them as well as singing. So that's the two types of harmonica. If you're still undecided and think, well, they both sound quite a good idea, I would say try the diatonic first, just for simple reasons of price. If it goes horribly wrong, then it's not a very expensive mistake that you've just made. In terms of buying a harmonica of either sort, a very important point to make is that you can't try before you buy. Yeah, if we were talking about any other instrument whatsoever, guitars, anything, I would say try loads of different sorts in the shop. Only once you feel that you're comfortable with one, then and only then commit your money. You cannot do that with a harmonica, and the reason for that is it is probably the most unhygienic instrument that's ever been invented. All right, it's people say, you know, I would never want to play a trumpet that somebody's just played with a load of spit on it or whatever. It's worse than that. Okay, the reason it's worse is that not only do we breathe out when we play the harp, we breathe in as well. So you're covering all of those reeds and all the innards with all of those lovely droplets containing all of your germs, and you're breathing in right to the bottom of your lungs. Yeah, so general point, by the way, and this is a bit of harmonica etiquette, is you never ever use somebody else's harmonica, yeah, and don't ask. It's not a nice thing to be asked because people don't like to refuse. That would be my advice anyway. Of course, that advice has been amplified by a factor of 10 since we've had coronavirus, so don't do that. So you've got to buy before you try. The good news is, A, they're not that expensive, as I've said, so 30 quid is what you're looking at. B, there are lots of good harmonica websites out there. What do? I don't know the first thing about harmonicas. This guy's just told me to buy one without trying it. So which type of harmonica to get, which make? Well, the most famous make by far is Hohner, and you might want to look at what they've got. There's a great variety even amongst diatonic harmonicas of what to get. Some of them have got wooden bodies, yeah, or what's sometimes called the comb of the harmonica, because when you take it to bits it looks a little bit like a cone. It's made of wood. In this particular case you can see it's a plastic comb. If it's your first ever, I would say go for one with a plastic comb, because it's sometimes a bit more comfortable on your lips than a wooden one, which can kind of snag slightly, so it might not be that comfortable. I would say of the Hohners, the one that I got on the best with when I was a beginner was the Hohner Special 20, so you could do a lot worse than getting yourself one of those. If you are thinking of a different make than Hohner, another really good make that I'm happy to recommend is a Lee Oscar for a beginner's harmonica. Alright, now Lee Oscar, the harmonica player who gave his name to this brand, his starting point was the Special 20, which at that time I was really into it as well, and he said he took the Special 20 and he tried to make it even better. They got a lovely nice big bright sound, which is quite a nice encouragement if you're just learning to start off with. So if you really had to twist my arm behind my back and say which would you get, I would probably go for Lee Oscar. If you get on well with your first harmonica, do try other ones though as well. That's really important because they do all feel slightly different. It's extremely personal with a harmonica. It's a matter of taste. Some people love ones with steel reeds. Personally, I just don't get on with those. The harmonica I play now, personally, is called a Golden Melody. It isn't the one that I started off with. It was about the 20th one I tried. One harmonica make that does deserve a mention is the Marine Band, which is the most famous of Hohner's diatonic harmonicas. It's a wooden-bodied harmonica. It is the one, more than anything else, that some of the classic harmonica players used to use. So at some point, you have to try a Marine Band. In fact, it was so ubiquitous that some people even use the word Marine Band to mean diatonic harmonica. They say, do you play the chromatic or do you play the Marine Band? In the same way that people use the word Hoover to mean vacuum cleaner, you know, it's just a particular make. That's some thoughts about what make to go for. The next question is what key to get, yeah, because as you've seen from my set, I've got lots and lots of different keys, as do most diatonic players. No hesitation, go for a C. The main reason for that is if you're starting, you're going to want to learn it, and there's loads and loads of teaching resources online that I would be happy to recommend. Almost all of them use a C harmonica, yeah. In fact, if you ever go to a harmonica event and people say, you know, turn up and we'll all be playing together and we'll be learning stuff, 99 times out of 100, they will say in the invitation, bring along a C harmonica. Yeah, so it will enable your learning. The other thing to say is it sits right in the middle in terms of pitch of all the other harmonicas. So it makes more sense to try one in the middle rather than start off with a low one or start off with a high one, I would say. Expect to buy more keys if you start off with a C harmonica. Your second harmonica, you might want to buy a different make of harmonica but in the same key, and then you're comparing apples with apples. If you're happy with the type of harmonica that you've got and you just want to experiment with different keys, see what it feels like to play a slightly higher one, a slightly lower one, my recommendation as to what order you get the keys in is the first one C, I would say second one A, bit of a low one, but it enables you to play in some quite useful keys, especially with guitarists. Third one I would go for D, similar reason. Fourth one I'd say G, which is going to feel very low in D. Probably the fifth one I'd go for is an F, which feels very, very high, but by then you'll have a very good comprehensive sense of what the whole range of the diatonic harmonica is. That's about it. I hope that's been some help for you. It's great that you're thinking of buying the harmonica. Best of luck making your first purchase, and come on back and we'll talk about the basics of actually playing once you've got hold of one. All right?